There's no other reason why something didn't work other than I failed that time. And the best part about failing is that you learn. You only learn when you lose. Hi, everyone. My name is Pete Ferrari. Welcome to the Super Self podcast series. I have been clamoring, dying to get to this particular episode because it's very, very near and dear to my heart. It's called Breaking the Cycle. Breaking the cycle is a fundamental part of finding better health and well-being, which, as you've heard me say many times, is the crux of this entire series. How do we get in touch with that mind, body, soul connection? How do we find ourselves and our families a better quality of life? Well, breaking the cycle, unfortunately, may become a predominant part of that. I personally have had to break a cycle or considerable cycles many times. And thereby extension today, it's going to be a lot more about my experiences as opposed to science or statistics. Now, the inclination, because I'm going to be talking more about myself just to convey meanings and messages, is that you're inclined to think Pete's all about himself. Me. Pete's pounding his chest. Pete thinks he's great. Pete's overcome. Pete's a conqueror. That is actually the opposite of what I mean. Really, at a fundamental level, what I'm going to try to illustrate today is that I'm not special. I'm a knucklehead from the gutter, as you'll see, as you've heard. Anybody can do this. I am not special. So as you hear these things, keep that in mind as resonant, because it's in my mind as resonant when I'm speaking. I'm not special. And it's something that is really going to hopefully help you understand that anybody can do these things. There's no limit to what you can do when you exercise your own free will. And that's really what this is all about. It's your own free will. So hopefully during the course of today, we'll talk about the things that you can do to break the cycle. And really it stems back to just putting a plan in place. If you can find a way to construct a plan to break a cycle and stick to the plan, we talked about this with Admiral McCraven on one of the other episodes, small wins, gather a series of small wins that turns into momentum, that turns into a series of big wins, that turns into a lifestyle. Well, that also turns into breaking a cycle. And so these are things that I've done, luckily in my life, starting from when I was very, very young, all the way up through until today, which we'll discuss. And it's that old saying, Immanuel Kant, one of my favorite philosophers, I remember it well from college, which was 40 years ago. I hate to say it, but he who wills the end wills also the means. And that basically means plan your work and work your plan. Even if you don't necessarily have a plan, moving forward will start to take you there. As you guys have heard me say many, many times, I grew up in poverty. My dad was killed when I was 10 years old, and this thrust my family and I into extreme rural poverty. I remember not eating every day. I remember the big blocks of government yellow, nasty cheese. I remember them well, 5-pound blocks, I think they were, and what they tasted like. And so, part of it for me at an instinctive level when I was very, very young was, I don't want this. I hate this. I hate hearing rats crawling up and down the insides of the walls and over the ceilings at night. I hate having rats literally nesting in the old dilapidated futon thing. It can't even be called a futon that I was sleeping on. I hated it. I wanted out. And, from the time I was very, very early on in my life, I had everybody telling me I was worthless, right? I'm trash. I'm white trash. I'm never going to amount to anything. I was small. I was weak. We were poor. I had no guidance. We had no money. We had nothing. And so just keeping in mind that I couldn't handle being stuck in that situation. Maybe it's a function of stubbornness or otherwise divine intervention, who knows? But I just started paying attention. I started watching what other people were doing who seemed to have their shit together. And I started listening and I started observing. And I was doing this in between the time that I was having to do other things to survive. I had to go to work in the tobacco fields when I was 12 years old during the summers and after school so that we might be able to eat. And the farmers in our town, I grew up in rural poverty, not in city poverty. The farmers in our town would hire you even if you didn't have papers. You didn't need to be 16. So we could be on the farms early in the morning, on the weekends, during all summer in the excruciating heat, picking tobacco, feeding the cows, birthing calves in some instances, whatever it took, farmland farm life, we did it. And so at a very early age, I was working and understanding the value of work and how it could get me to a better place. In that simple case, it was how it could get me to my next meal. And so when I started to understand that work was a big part of how I was going to dig myself out, again, I started paying attention. I talked to some folks that knew, counselors at school. I knew I wanted to go to college. I knew I had to get my college degree. This was back then. This was back in the 80s. And so I just listened and I applied for a bunch of loans and I got a bunch of loans and I got some grants because we were super, super poor. And it still didn't end up being enough. I still had to work while I was a full-time student at UConn. So one semester in particular at UConn, I was fully matriculated, 5 night classes. And I was doing an internship at NCR Corporation during the day in Hartford, Connecticut, commuting from stores, 40 hours a week. And I walked on and played Division III lacrosse because I had never played sports in high school. I couldn't play sports because I had to be working after school, but I really loved the game of lacrosse. I just liked the way it looked when I was able to see it. And so I walked on when I was a freshman in college. My first organized game of lacrosse that I ever played with referees on a field was freshman year in college. I started by the time I was a senior. While I was fully matriculated, while I was doing a full-time internship, while at certain points I was sleeping in my car because I couldn't afford room and board, and my teammates were smuggling food out to me from the commons. So as I'm doing these things and as I'm trying to dig out and get myself a college degree, I'm listening and I'm understanding and I'm observing and I'm computing. What's the plan? And little by little, I devised a series of small steps that were going to dig me out so that I could break the cycle. And sure enough, over time, those little steps led to momentum. Momentum led to big steps. Big steps led to a college degree from a top 10 business school at the time in the country. And that was when Pete Ferrari was basically born. Still heavily in debt, still had all the trauma of growing up as a gutter rat, basically. But I broke the cycle. I broke the poverty cycle and I got out. And it obviously changed my life. It put me in a position where I started my first company when I was 22. I found a loophole in a tariff for commercial long distance service. This was way before cell phones existed. And I exploited that and started my first company. Heavily in debt. Again, everybody telling me I shouldn't do it, couldn't do it, was stupid to do it, stay where I was working. I was making a great living. I was putting my little brother through college. Don't upset the apple cart. Don't do anything bold. Stay the course. Well, I disagree with that. I wanted to break the cycle and I wanted to be more than okay. I wanted to try to find a way to be great. And the way to do that was to build companies. So started the company when I was 22, ended up selling it when I was 25 for 10 times revenue, packed up my stuff and moved from Connecticut to Atlanta, where I started to build tech companies. So again, breaking the cycle of just towing the line in corporate America, graduate from college, get a job, broke that cycle. Getting a college degree in the first place, coming from poverty, broke the cycle, got it done. And, there's a series of other times in my life when I've been able to do the same thing. And I think I need to say again here in the middle, and I'll say it again at the end, I am not special. I'm a knucklehead. Anybody can do this if I can do it, period. It's simply a function of planning your work so you can work your plan. General George Patton, you may have heard this from me before. A good plan violently executed today is far better than a perfect plan executed next week. Just jump, make a move. That's what I've done my entire life, and it's always suited me well. And it's not because I'm smarter than everybody. In fact, I'm usually far from the smartest guy in the room. I'm just willing to act, put a plan in place, and then execute. That's really what the difference is throughout the course of my entire life. And another part of the breaking the cycle nomenclature that I hear pretty frequently is that certain things are hereditary. And I agree to some extent that things can be hereditary. However, in the end of the day, free will, the decision to make a move, the choice, the conscious choice trumps all of that, period. You have complete control over how you conduct yourself, regardless of heredity. Now, for folks out there who have alcoholism in their family, for folks out there who have other troubles in their family, you guys are screaming and yelling. You're going to blow up the comments and you're going to tell me I'm full of shit. And you're going to tell me I don't know. And you're going to tell me that that's not the way it is. And you're going to go on and on and on and on and on. Well, I do know because my father was a heroin addict. full disclosure. And I'm not talking about snorting heroin. This was the 70s, mainlining heroin. Before he was killed in a drug-related incident, my father was a mainline heroin addicted user, failed rehab many times, okay? So thereby extension, if it's hereditary, drug addiction is coded in my DNA. Well, I'm not a drug addict. In fact, I reject drugs on every level. The smell of marijuana makes my stomach turn. I can't stand it. I don't want any part of it. And so while certain things are hereditary, I'm 5'7". I can't be 5'10", whether I want to or not. Free will, discipline, plan in place, work my plan. I'll never be 5'10". Other things where free will is involved, you absolutely can't control it regardless of hereditary. I suggest that to you because I have never in my life used anything as a crutch. When I fail, it's all my fault. Regardless of the people involved, regardless of the dynamics involved, regardless of market conditions, the weather outside, the terrorist attacks, COVID, if I fail, it's my fault. It's called Extreme Ownership, Extreme Leadership. Great book, Lance Babin, incredible book. When I fuck up, it's on me. And so never in my life have I ever looked or rested upon any type of a reason why something didn't work. There's no other reason why something didn't work other than I failed that time. And the best part about failing is that you learn. You only learn when you lose. That's the bottom line. Winning's easy. Keep on rolling on down the road. You only learn when you lose. And boy, have I lost. And that goes back to me beating my chest and everybody saying, well, Pete thinks he's special because his dad was a heroin addict and he got out of poverty and he started his first company, Pete. Well, again, I'm not special. And the only reason I'm able to share all of these experiences with you is because I have made so many mistakes in my life. Right? That old saying, good judgment is the product of experience. Experience is the product of bad judgment. You're looking at the king daddy of bad judgment right here. I've made 1 billion mistakes in my life and I've paid attention. And hopefully that's given me a kernel of wisdom along the way. That's what this is coming from. I don't think I'm special. To the contrary. And I've made 1 billion mistakes. Emphatically. That's where these stories are coming from. That's the genesis of this discussion today. And that's the spirit in which I hope you will understand and take what I'm saying to be true. And so when we look at things like addiction, when we look at things like breaking the cycle, it's simply a function of free will, planning your work, working your plan. And I apply that to breaking the cycle in your own stovepipe that is your life, right? Whether it's your family, whether it's your current situation, but there are also community factors as well. There are factors in your community where you've got the ability to break a cycle. And as we've discussed on prior episodes, community is super important. That's your bubble. That's your echo chamber. That's where people are giving you feedback, giving you advice, giving you their unsolicited opinions, unfortunately. And that is going to have an impact on your psyche, your mind, your body, your soul, your moods, your ability to control your appetite, how well you sleep, how you treat people around you, how they in turn treat you back. You've heard it ad nauseum from me on these episodes. So understanding the community and community cycles and recognizing cycles that need to be broken is equally as important. I'll take you to tennis with my daughter. My daughter was a top 15 tennis player in the country before she was heavily recruited to play Division I tennis at Illinois. She's since graduated. And I come from the gutter, as you've heard. I never played high school sports. If I did play high school sports, tennis or golf would have been the last two sports I could afford. Those are rich people sports, like skiing. I grew up in Connecticut. Everybody would go skiing on the weekends. Lift tickets back then were like $20. $20 was a week of food for us. Skiing, tennis, and golf, off the menu for the Ferraris when I was growing up. Never played tennis, never played sports. Well, I wanted my daughter to be an athlete. I wanted her to be in an individual-based sport so that she could rely more upon herself than a team to succeed. I don't like golf, therefore that leaves tennis, right? So she's going to be a tennis player. So as we're getting into tennis and as I'm trying to help her in Lower Alabama, which is one of the worst performing tennis states in the country, there are no academies. There's no Chris Everett. There's no John McEnroe. There's no IMG. It's Lower Alabama. As I'm trying to architect a journey through which she can become a top player and get heavily recruited, we're going to tournaments on the weekend. And unlike every other high school sport, almost every other high school sport, tennis is not recruited out of high school. So you don't play high school tennis and then colleges look at you. You got to play USTA tournaments all over the country, which means you're competing with players all over the country. You're competing against John McEnroe, New York Academy kids, whether you're from Lower Alabama or not. It's about your age group. You're competing against Chrissy Everett kids from Florida, here in South Florida where I live, as a function of your age group. You're competing against IMG kids, $1.5 billion facility, state of the art, because of your age group. We had to figure out a way to compete. But as I'm watching all of these families, as we're just starting to get into the tennis world, I'm noticing a lot that I don't like with these parents, stage parents. I'm talking about dads and moms berating and belittling and maligning their kids when they lose. One kid gets promised a steak if he wins, and he gets a McNugget if he loses, right? What kind of message is that sending? It's pathetic. It's weak. It's displaced anger from some other time in that parent's childhood. We had other parents who, if you lost, you had to go directly after the match, you had to go run wind sprints. The kid's physically and emotionally drained, burnt, adrenaline dumped, and demoralized after losing a match. You're going to make that kid go run sprints now? Get out of here. I've watched parents sacrifice their relationships with their children in order to get their children to perform on a tennis court. It was so obvious and readily apparent to me, and it made me sick. I swore I would never do it. I was never going to lose my daughter over a sport. Whether she sucked or whether she was an NCAA champion, that was off the table for me. My daughter's my life. My daughter's my world. I'm not going to go ahead and burn it down just because her forehand was messed up on a particular day. That's fucking ludicrous, right? So I watched it happen, and I made a concerted effort. We'd go play tournaments, we'd go play matches, and she'd get wiped out 6-0, 6-0. I'd buy her a big fat steak that night. Great job, kid. You worked your ass off on the tennis court. I love the attitude, and I love the effort. We'd go, she'd whip a girl, 6-0, 6-0. She'd get scolded. She'd get a talking to because her attitude and effort weren't on point that day. It was always very consistent with me. I let her coaches do the coaching, and I was her father. As her father, the only thing I concerned myself with was attitude and effort. If she won 6-0, 6-0, but she had a shitty attitude, dad's going to have a problem with that. If she won 6-0, 6-0, but her effort was half-paced, didn't care, nonchalant, maybe because the other child wasn't as good, daddy's got a problem with that. By the same token, if she loses 0-6, 0-6, but her attitude was completely on point, she kept her head about her, didn't get frustrated, didn't act like a petulant child, the proudest I've ever been. The proudest I've ever been of her in tennis were losses. Big losses against big names where she got wiped out, but she played her heart out and her attitude and her effort were completely on point. That's when you know you got a winner on your hands. When the sky is crashing down upon you and you keep your shit together and you continue to try to perform and you know that even if you lose, you'll get them next time. Well, that's why my daughter will tell you this, and she's been on podcasts. You can look it up, Diadem. She did a Spotify podcast with Diadem. It was actually the highest rated, most watched podcast for Diadem in that year. And she was the only college tennis player to attend that podcast. They're usually college coaches, professional coaches, and professional players. Only college player, most watched, highest rated because of how she crushed it. Well, she will tell you in that podcast, it's on Spotify, that I was always her dad first. And that's why she and I are closer today than we have ever been. Because again, I broke the cycle. I didn't worry about what other people were doing, even though I knew nothing. So for all I knew, you had to be like that in order to succeed in tennis, because I know nothing about tennis. All these people are breaking their kids and beating up on their kids. Okay, is that what it takes to be successful? Well, on my terms, if that's what it took, then I'm out. Then we're out. Forget it. She can just go be an academic or pick another sport. So I did what I wanted to do. I broke the cycles. We made friends at every tournament. That was our pointed effort. We didn't make enemies at every tournament by being bad sports and having crappy attitudes and put forth shitty effort. We made friends at every tournament. And we had the most fun during those years, 10, 12 years of great, great fun because we broke the cycle. We did it on our terms. So whether you are breaking your cycle with something that is hereditary, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, whether you are breaking the cycle with your circumstances, growing up in poverty or in less than ideal circumstances, whether you are breaking the cycle with regard to how you're supposed to be towing the line getting the corporate job, becoming an accountant because you have an accounting degree when you don't want to do that, whether you're breaking that cycle, whether you're breaking the cycle in your community because people are acting and conducting themselves a certain way and it doesn't feel to you instinctively, back to instinct, to be right. This is how we get back in touch with our mind, our body, and soul. We get in touch with our feelings and our instincts. We find harmony. We find a better quality of life. Everybody around us pays the beautiful price, and in return, they treat us the same exact way. So it's really, again, the circle of love that keeps going around and around and around with all the people that are around us, including our children, our colleagues, our friends, our subordinates, and even strangers. And so, I share with you all of these hard fought lessons today because I wanted you to know. I wanted you to know more about me. I wanted you to know about what I've been through. I want you also to know that I don't think I'm special and anybody can do it. It's just a series of steps. It's just small wins into momentum, into big wins. And that's what we're talking about when we're looking at health and well-being overall. I enjoyed speaking today, and I'm looking forward to the next episode. Thanks so much.
Okay, everyone. That brings to a close another episode of the Super Self podcast series brought to you by Jocko Rare Sugar. Here, we are going to be helping you discover the truth for all things that surround good health and well-being. We'll be offering you statistical data, clinical trial information that has been evaluated and corroborated so that you can see for yourself that we say what we mean and we mean what we say. Now, while the Super Self series is brought to you technically by Jocko Rare Sugar, I don't care if you buy the sugar. I really don't. That's not what this is about. This is about operating as the conscience across the food and beverage industry, across the health and well-being industry, which includes supplements, fitness trainers, and the like. Our goal is to provide you with the stepping stones for your own research, where you can go out and corroborate the things that we say on your own. See for yourself what it means to find a good quality of life that fits in alongside your current lifestyle or your family's lifestyle. I think it's really going to be interesting and fascinating if we take this journey together. And once again, our goal is not just to provide you with data, but to keep it interesting. I've been living a clean lifestyle for 40 years now. I've been going to the gym for almost 45 years, eating clean for 40 years. And so we're going to have a ton of stories along the way about the foibles, the successes, and the failures, but we're also going to provide you with the information that you need to carry on and carry forward. Think about subscribing. We'd love it if you subscribe to us, pass this on to your friends. I think we've got a lot of edgy and interesting podcasts that are upcoming, and we certainly will look forward to any feedback that you want to provide. Until next time, cheers.